Dimitri Gaddis shot his younger brother Alex in the abdomen through the window of their family home in South Australia in 2019. Dimitri was only 23 years old, while Alex was 16. But Dimitri didn't intend to kill his brother. He fired the gun because he thought his house was under siege. Why was he in such a delusional state? Because he had a long history of taking methamphetamine or meth. Luckily, Alex survived the shot but suffered from multiple surgeries. It was a tragedy it happened to two young Australians who should have brighter future. Meth is a highly addictive synthetic drug. One use could lead to addiction. It causes dramatic changes in the brain. Paranoia or the sensation of insects creeping under the skin will stay with the person for years, even though he or she has stopped taking meth. Meth will seize every opportunity to trick the person to crawl back to it. Long-term abuse of meth changes a person into someone you don't know, violent, delusional, malfunctional, and finally out of shape. Although it's an illegal drug, surprisingly, it's easy to get in Australia. You might get it in pubs or parties. At times, it's free for initial trial. Almost 3,000 kilos of illegal drugs are smuggled into Australia every year. For the recent 10 years, approximately 1 in 3 young Australians aged 18 to 24 have used illegal drugs, especially meth. Meth impacts Australia enormously. Imagine how many young individuals have been affected, how many families have been ruined, how much money taxpayers have put in for medical treatment, rehabilitation, police activities, and community security. Do you know for the recent 10 years, up to 70% of illegal drugs entered Australia through a man, Tu Chi Lop. People call him Brother Number 3 or Samgo in Cantonese. Samgo just looks a normal Chinese folk, short and plain. But he was the most wanted man for the recent 2 years by Global Police Force. He delivered so many illegal drugs into Australia as if the border force did not exist. He was called the Asia's El Chapo, but only more mysterious. He was the big boss of a triad alliance, which was composed of 5 gangs. He was in charge of a vast multinational drug trafficking network called The Company. The Company sourced cocaine and heroin from Latin American cartels. They manufactured meth in super labs in Myanmar. And they sell these drugs to smaller nation-based crime groups all over the world. Meth is their main business. They even guaranteed a replacement of any drugs if the drugs were seized by police or a border force, at no extra cost. Apparently, the customer service of illegal drug trade is better than any legal companies. The drugs were put into containing sheep, in tea packages, furniture, or household appliances, and arrived at Australian border, one after another. His company earns as much as 17 billion per year, similar to the annual GDP of Laos. Staff of the company or gang members don't use bank services to get their payment, of course. They get paid or pay others through casinos or investments approved by corrupted officers. That's what we call money laundering. It's worth mentioning that Samgo lived a very luxury life. He was being protected by Thai kickboxers, he flied by private jet, and he once lost 66 million in a single night at a Macau casino. The 66 million must have been cleaned and deposited into the bank accounts of his business partners or contacts. Similar to other gang leaders, Samgo's hands were touching more than drug smuggling. Underground weapon trading, forced prostitution, and human trafficking are also standing items in their department meetings. It was enormously disciplined in global organized crimes, in many ways more sophisticated than any Latin American cartel. They function like a global corporation. Their organized crimes, would be so unsuccessful without support from many government officials of their own countries, including Australia. Many members from the company had high-level links to governments across the region and have even infiltrated security departments. For example, in 2018, Sam Goh cited a copy of an internal, highly confidential document from ASIO. The document described details of what Australian government knew about him. So who passed the document to him? Another example is that many officials from Australian customs were suspected of having close ties and numerous links to the company. How many more Australian government departments have been infiltrated by the company? One of Sam Goh's major business partners or crime partners is Wang Kuokoi, the citizen of China. People call him Broken Tooth. He was the gang leader in Macau. However, after he was released from Macau prison in 2012, he became the founder of the World Homeland Historical and Cultural Association, which is affiliated with the World Homeland Association. The World Homeland Association, on the other hand, has close ties with China's Communist Party. Broken Tooth is highly active in promoting the Belt and Road Initiative, which will be unfolded in details in our channel, so please subscribe and stay tuned. Briefly speaking, Belt and Road Initiative is a strategy of Chinese Communist Party aiming to use so-called investments to obtain controlling power in other countries. Because of that, he was sanctioned by the US government in 2020, who alleged him of engaging in drug smuggling, human trafficking, and bribery corruption under the cover of Belt and Road projects. Although in China he is still freely attending business or government meetings, his or his contacts' money has been frozen in USA. He or his contacts are forbidden to enter USA. As his best buddy, Sam Goh and his company also invested in large infrastructure ventures under the Belt and Road Initiative. It's not hard to imagine how many organized crimes were delivered hidden in Belt and Road projects. Luckily for Australia, the Belt and Road Initiative Pact was torn by the government. Sam Goh is a highly intelligent businessman, and the key words to conclude his career are drug smuggling, organized crimes, corruptions, infiltration, Belt and Road Initiative, and association with Chinese Communist Party. Sam Goh was arrested in Amsterdam at the beginning of this year. Australian government pushed to extradite him back to Australia to face trial, given the damage he has caused to Australians. However, illegal drugs continue to pour in Australia after the arrest of Sam Goh. The company is still functioning. Organized crimes are still happening. So, what is it keeping everything moving as usual? It's not gang leaders or gang members. It's money. Without money or without the circulation of money, the company would be disabled, so as many other similar criminal networks. With current law system in Australia, it would be difficult to cut the circulation of dirty money, as long as there are casinos and corruptions at the government level. However, an act targeting human rights abuse can do the job. Magnitsky legislation. If you don't know what it is, please click the link up here. Briefly speaking, Magnitsky Act empowers Australian government to freeze the money in the banking system after the money has been identified belonging to the contacts of the gang members. The contacts may be their families or friends who may not involve in the crimes at all, however, helping them to carry the money. That means even the dirty money has been cleaned through casinos or so-called investments. It could still be frozen by the government, which makes the money laundering pointless. If Magnitsky Act was passed in Australia, none of Sam Goh's friends, family members, staff members, or contacts could enter Australia if they are not Australians. Magnitsky Act is a powerful legislation, precisely and broadly disabling global crimes networks by cutting their sources of funding. Currently in Australia, our old-fashioned law system is no match for the advanced organized crimes. So why has Magnitsky Act still not passed in Australia? Actually, many parliament members and MPs are urging the government to pass Magnitsky Act. But what the government needs is the pressure and encouragement from Australian people. The government is hesitating because it gets used to balancing all political forces on the table. It doesn't want to overly annoy the totalitarian regime like Chinese Communist Party. But the government leaders forget that Magnitsky Act is a defending tool, not an attacking tool. To pass the act is similar to upgrading our home security system, and there's nothing to hesitate about. So how to pressure the government to pass the act? We can write to the Prime Minister, or we can co-sign a letter addressed to him. Imagine what would happen if 500,000 Australians write to the government with the same request. Thank you for watching today's video. We open this channel to reveal what the mainstream media is reluctant to report, especially the topics of the infiltration to Australian from Chinese Communist Party. So please subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for future videos. Bye for now.